The audience fell into a breathless silence, the kind that only follows an overwhelming moment, as Jin stood still under the blinding lights of the O2 Arena in London. His voice, just moments ago soaring through the final notes of Spring Day, had cracked, then stopped altogether. His body remained composed, but his eyes brimmed with tears that finally fell as he turned his head slightly away from the crowd. And in that instant, millions watching around the world asked the same question: why did Jin cry during the ending of Spring Day? This question has haunted fans ever since the now viral footage spread like wildfire online, showing Jin visibly trembling after performing what many consider BTS's most emotional song. During a live stream the following evening, Jin, known for his candid nature, finally addressed what truly unfolded during that deeply unsettling moment, and his explanation only deepened the emotional gravity of the night. "I wasn't supposed to cry," Jin admitted with a faint, strained smile during his live broadcast. "But something about that moment broke me. It wasn't just the song, it was everything." His voice, calm yet heavy, carried a weight that could not be ignored. Unlike previous post-concert lives that often included jokes and light conversation, this one felt more like a confession than a casual update. Jin revealed that in the seconds before singing the final line, a wave of memories surged through his mind. Not just memories of the song's meaning, but of the 7 members once standing together on stage, of the times when Spring Day symbolized hope during loss, unity during separation. "I looked to my right," he explained, "and my body instinctively expected to see someone there. But the space was empty." Though he did not mention any names, fans quickly interpreted this as a subtle reference to the absence of his fellow BTS members, especially Suga, who is currently inactive from performances. The silence surrounding that detail only fueled speculation, but what Jin focused on was not the drama, it was the undeniable ache of something missing. "I've performed this song countless times," Jin continued, his tone never shifting from its solemn cadence. "But this was different. It felt like the first time I truly understood the emptiness behind the lyrics." His voice cracked again, this time not from vocal fatigue, but something deeper: exhaustion of the soul. The significance of performing Spring Day in London, far from Seoul, in front of thousands of foreign fans, was not lost on him. He emphasized that the song had always represented connection across distance. That night, however, the distance felt unbearable. When asked by fans during the live why he didn't hold back the tears, Jin answered, "Because I couldn't pretend. The moment was too real." It was the first time he publicly acknowledged that the tour, titled Seokjin Tour, was taking a toll on him in ways he hadn't anticipated. He spoke not of physical fatigue, but emotional depletion. The arena had erupted with cheers just moments earlier. Fans held up banners, their voices echoing Jin's every lyric, yet in that moment of vulnerability, he felt utterly alone. "I was surrounded by love," he said, "and yet I felt something missing inside me. That's what made me cry." Jin's honesty left fans stunned. The image of him wiping his tears on stage now feels far more than just an emotional moment. It was an unguarded revelation. Many have since called it the most human moment in his career. And it has raised difficult questions. Is Jin silently carrying the burden of BTS's transition? Has the weight of being a soloist in such a massive spotlight begun to fracture the emotional strength he's always projected? Although he didn't elaborate on future plans or mention group dynamics in detail, his message was clear. The concert wasn't just about performing music. It was a confrontation with absence, with memory, and with the shifting identity of an artist who once stood among 6 brothers. Observers noted that throughout the rest of the live, Jin repeatedly returned to the word longing. It wasn't the crowd he longed for. It wasn't even the applause. It was something more intimate, something he felt had slipped just out of reach. What this means for future performances remains unclear. Jin did not promise anything in his broadcast. He didn't reassure fans with hopeful statements or scripted optimism. Instead, he offered silence. And in that silence, more truth than any carefully written speech could provide. As the Seokjin Tour continues, the question of whether more such moments await lingers heavily. Will the emotional unraveling of Jin in London repeat elsewhere? Or was that a singular crack in a carefully maintained exterior? The tears during Spring Day were not theatrical. They were not part of any act. And now that Jin has explained them, they raise far more questions than they answer. In the spotlight, in front of tens of thousands, Jin didn't just perform. He mourned. What exactly did he mourn that night? The past? The present? Or a future that no longer looks the same? Jin's voice during the live may have been calm, but what he said struck with the weight of suppressed sorrow and internal conflict, things he had clearly carried long before stepping onto the O2 Arena stage. For an artist so often praised for his composure, his clarity in emotionally loaded moments, and his ability to comfort others through his own pain, this confession marked a rare deviation. And yet it felt necessary. It felt like something he could no longer carry alone. Observers noted the significance of his choice to reveal this during a live stream rather than through an official medium or prepared interview. By doing so, Jin bypassed the barriers of PR management and allowed raw truth to take center stage, unfiltered, unguarded, and unpolished. His facial expressions throughout the broadcast mirrored the same vulnerability he had tried to conceal during the concert. The way he would glance down when speaking about regret, the silence that lingered between certain words, and the long pauses that filled the air more heavily than the sentences themselves. "People saw me cry," he said, "but they didn't know what it meant. I didn't cry because of the crowd. I cried because I saw someone who should have been there but wasn't." The weight of that sentence alone sent waves of speculation rippling through every corner of the fandom. Was Jin referring to a loved one who had passed away? Was it connected to one of the members of BTS who is currently serving in the military, whose absence has left an emotional gap in both the group and his heart? Or could it be something deeper? Perhaps a symbolic absence tied to memories, past traumas, or the growing emotional toll of years spent under global scrutiny. What made this revelation even more haunting was the way Jin described the moment it all began unraveling. "The second verse," he recalled, "that's when I felt it. The words hit differently. It wasn't a song anymore. It was me speaking to someone I lost. I felt like I wasn't on stage. I was somewhere else." This admission reframes the entire performance of Spring Day at the O2 Arena. Fans have already begun circulating slowed-down clips of the song's second verse, pointing out the subtle changes in his delivery, the hesitation before a word, the quiver in his tone, the flicker of something behind his eyes that many missed in real time. It wasn't just a performance, it was a breakdown, masked by melody, and yet, despite the vulnerability, Jin maintained an astonishing level of dignity. He didn't frame himself as a victim, nor did he ask for sympathy. "I'm not saying this because I want people to feel bad for me," he said. "I just think you deserve to know the truth." In that statement lies the foundation of what this moment now represents, a turning point in how the public understands Jin, not as a flawless idol, but as a human being under extraordinary pressure. For someone who has spent years crafting performances down to the smallest detail, this crack in his facade wasn't a flaw. It was a message, and the message was clear. Even the strongest among us break. It is no coincidence that this occurred during Spring Day, a song that has long served as BTS's anthem for mourning, longing, and unresolved separation. Jin has sung it countless times before, but this time was different. This time, he was not singing about someone else's pain. He was living through his own. His decision to share this during the Seokjin _EP tour, particularly at a peak moment such as the O2 Arena in London, underscores how significant that night truly was. It was a historic occasion not just for Jin as a solo artist, but also for Korean music as a whole. Yet beneath the historic headlines and triumphant coverage, there was another narrative unfolding in real time, a quiet, painful unraveling that was invisible to all but felt by one. "After I walked off stage," he revealed during the live, "I couldn't speak to anyone. I sat alone for a while. I didn't want to be seen. I didn't want anyone to say it was a good performance. Because to me, it wasn't." That admission shocked fans who had celebrated the performance as one of his most moving. Social media had been flooded with praise, highlighting the intensity of emotion he brought to the stage. But now, with this new context, many are reevaluating what they saw. Praise is being replaced with concern, excitement with empathy. What remains unclear is how this moment will affect the remainder of Jin's tour. Will he alter his setlist going forward? Will Spring Day remain a fixture in his solo performances, or has it become too emotionally charged to revisit? Jin did not provide concrete answers in the live, and perhaps he doesn't have them himself yet. "I don't know if I'll sing it again," he said. Not like that. Yet for all the sadness his confession evoked, there was also a quiet strength in his delivery. Jin didn't present his emotions as something shameful or as a failure. Rather, he offered them as a reminder that vulnerability is not weakness, and that even on the biggest stages, authenticity matters more than perfection. In fact, it is precisely because the moment was imperfect that it will be remembered. The flawless notes and precise choreography may fade from memory, but that single tear rolling down his face, paired with the weight of the silence that followed, will remain etched in the hearts of those who witnessed it. Sometimes, Jin said, "We try too hard to look okay. I've done that for years. But maybe it's time I let myself feel things on stage and off." And in that moment, a new chapter began. Not just for Jin, but for every fan who has ever leaned on his music during their own moments of grief, who now realizes that the man behind the songs has wounds of his own. What will happen next? Will Jin choose to share more in the coming weeks? Will this lead to a broader conversation within the fandom and the K-pop industry about emotional transparency, pressure, and the invisible cost of global fame? Or will the story fade, drowned out by headlines of chart success and sold-out arenas? Whatever happens, one thing is certain. The performance of Spring Day at the O2 Arena can no longer be viewed as just a concert highlight. It was a breaking point, a confession wrapped in melody, a final cry disguised as a farewell song.